All right, welcome everybody to Gentleman Game Masters DM Corner. I guess we'll just call it that. This is just a not really experiment, but I decided it'd be cool to, since I've been playing with some great DMs for a while now, to highlight some on my channel and through my I don't know, social media, whatever you want to call it, my platform. Highlight some of the other dungeon masters and game masters who I think do an exceptional job at the game. And even for myself, I'm constantly learning from other people, and it's really cool when you can learn from new DMs, old DMs, all of that. So today's kind of guest is Nicholas Ortiz. Nicholas runs games for the D&D Experience Point. If you don't know what that is just our small little group on meetup.com. It's about 150 members. Of those 150, I'd probably say there's maybe 20 members that are very consistent and come to a lot of the games, and Nick probably has a group of about 7 to 8 consistent players that play with him week to week on Wednesdays. And so I just wanted to talk to him about it. And what's really cool is that I think when I first met Nick about October of last year, or maybe November, we were your first time actually really kind of getting into D&D, and now you're running like full-blown, not only full-blown games every week. A weekly DM is a pretty awesome thing, but also being very, with the consistency, but also doing a lot of homebrew. So I guess to kind of open it up, my first question would be, we need to tell everybody a little bit about, yourself and your journey to becoming a DM, if you don't mind, however you'd like to.
Yeah, so D&D was always that thing that I've heard about and just didn't know how to get into, or like the thought about it. Like, it sounds cool, but I don't have anyone to play with. I don't have that kind of like those connections.
Yeah.
And I found Meetup, and they had like one of the few groups that was doing D&D was the D&D Experience Point. And that was like my first introduction there. And I was really immersed by how the role playing and like you can tie gameplay and the action with people and like cinematics and all these different things, and it's like, this is amazing.
Absolutely.
I've always been really big into storytelling, writing, like novels, reading novels, even interested in like writing novel stuff. And that's what made me want to bring out the ideas and like the stories that I had in my own head for other players to play with. And whenever I did my very first D&D session, or like ran as a DM, I was so excited and like so happy when I finished the session and everyone was just like at the edge of their seats, seeing how like it escalated and how the story unfolded and their choices that led to that.
Yeah.
I still will not forget that moment when a giant bandit blew through the wooden doors because he drank a potion of giant growth and fire breathing.
Right.
Was great.
That's great. That's great. I noticed some of your later games. I noticed this one you have coming up, like Monster Hunters. I feel like there's some interesting like nods to things that maybe you're inspired by. Like, is I would ask this, is that like a tie-in to kind of like a nod to the video games maybe that you played and like trying that at the tabletop?
It's 100%, and it is Monster Hunter, the end of the popular PlayStation game that you have a bunch of friends and you go hunt big monsters.
Yeah.
I played that game extensively. I think I have like 700 hours in that game. I'm a huge gamer. And I found a D&D monster manual that was for almost all of the different monsters from Monster Hunter.
Oh, that's perfect.
And I was like, I love this. I want to I want to do this. And I also, because I have my weekly Wednesday campaigns, but I've also been wanting to do kind of like maybe like a one-shot thing, just something that people can hop into, have fun, then hop out if they want to.
Yeah.
And I was thinking that would be great. A month, like a monster hunting themed, every
Yeah,
week or so you hunt a couple different monsters.
that's really
And
cool. I like that.
I've been working with one of the players, Jason,
Hmm.
with actually adding the weapons from the game, which
Okay.
had their like own like special like abilities and unique traits and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So it's so like the D&D game is like it's starting to turn into its own kind of thing.
yeah,
So that's where like my interest in like homebrew and just like
yeah.
creating stories and stuff like also stems from.
Kind of nice to have maybe like a game that feels a little more hack and slash, and you can just really just go at it. Like,
Yeah.
if that's something that you're, and that's really cool because I had an idea a while ago where I wanted to do just bosses, and I've never taken advantage of it. So it's really cool that you're doing kind of like a Monster Hunter game where they can kind of track creatures. Because I was going to do something where you just fight, literally just like, oh, have you ever want to fight the Demogorgon? You come to this
Yeah.
game, you can fight the Demogorgon at like whatever level the game starts at. See if you survive. So we may do something like that in the future, but I really like that idea. And I don't know if you'd agree, but I feel like that's, especially when you have games like yours where you're expanding a universe and there's a consistent storyline.
Yeah.
Like with Strahd, for me, it's nice to take those breaks away from the world to play in a different little sandbox, just even for a few hours, keep things
Yeah.
fresh.
I definitely agree with that. There's definitely times where it's like, okay, my players are over here. I have to do this. Okay, what are the NPCs doing now at this point? Okay, all the monsters, what are they doing?
What are they doing?
Yeah, that the struggle of a DM where
Yeah,
you are in control of the whole world, and
yeah,
the more you flesh it out, the more effort that is to maintain that realism, to maintain all of those things. So
yes.
I have a lot
Continuity
of
issues.
so I always have major respect for people that are trying to keep a world like a trying to create a living, breathing world.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I mean, that actually comes to mind. What would be my next question, especially for someone like you that almost homebrews, 90 to almost 100% of what you do.
Yeah,
I run so many games. I feel like I don't have the time to be as like I'm being as creative as I can to change what
yeah,
I'm working with, the material. But for someone to do that and to do it weekly takes a lot of work. Talk to us about how do you prep for a game? What does it look like when you finish it, from the time you finish a game on Wednesday, knowing that your players have shaped the world and now you've got a week to figure it out before you give them a new adventure?
so I actually have a full on like world map
Okay.
of for the players. You've seen it
I've
before.
seen it. It's very cool.
Yeah, and I have I actually have like a Word document
Okay.
where
Mm-hmm.
every single thing that has ever happened, the detailed history of the world that's been created, has been jotted down. The players, the different NPCs from each city and continent, and what they're doing.
Yeah.
And usually, how it all begins is I just listen to some music and I brainstorm, I start writing,
Yep.
and then it's like, okay, this is probably what's happening right now. This is what we're doing. Okay. I also try not to keep it too strict and too like format, because I also work with my players a lot with their where all the worlds are, because sometimes the players have actually full on created some of the like the content and stuff like that in
Wow.
some of the places. Like we straight up added an additional island for one player. And
That's so
so
cool.
I don't try and like, okay, this is like 100%. I leave. That's probably what's happening, but I'll also leave it to the players if something else happens that changes
Right.
things.
That's really cool. Wow. Well, that sounds like a lot of work that you put in, and I think we're similar in that way, that where I feel like my process always starts with music. It always starts with listening to music and kind of sitting down and getting into a zone, trying to think about the characters and where they're at and where things are going and what each character maybe is looking for, needs out of the next episode, or what
Yeah.
the story needs. But that's really cool, and I love that you have a living continent. I mean, when I play with Strahd, I'm just working in this little land district. I'm like, all the campaigns I've ever run have never really been out of an area. I've never done like the continent globetrotting or anything like that. I've always been, in the Sword Coast or in the land in Shadowfell in this particular region. And I talk to your players, and they're like, Nick's got us like going all over the place. We've got like a continent over here, and then I was building a world over here. So I'm like, oh, that's really awesome. Let me ask you this: do you have any aspirations to, as you continue to with your kind of career as a DM, is there a point where you want to say, I want to take all this and I actually want to create a book that's my own to put out there? Or is that something you've thought about? I mean, and I'm asking this specifically because you mentioned like your love for like writing and being a writer and things like that.
I've had like thought about writing like a fantasy book or something like that here and there. I also keep, I also document all like the past games and stuff like that. If for any reason I wanted to go back and like rerun them or something like that, or we get into some like time travel nonsense,
Oh, wait till your players get you into time travel nonsense.
Oh yeah. But yeah, there has been thoughts about it. Not like I'm going to like do this. I think the main aspiration for me right now is I want to get my players to level 20.
Nice.
So that's the end goal for me.
Yep. I don't think I've ever gotten there yet. I think the highest I've gotten players is at 15. And so that is a goal for me as well in the future. And it's it works a little bit better because I like that you're kind of milestoning your character. So I think it's quite achievable as they hit those big goals. And that's probably my fault, where I've always done this weird thing where I'm doing experience points and milestones. So it's like I like experience. I think what it is. I like experience points level 1 through 5. And then I find that where I need the story, like where I want to let the story breathe, I find that like to get to any level after level 6 is just like a grind fest. And it just, and so then I kind of start to convert more to milestoning after that. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know, but that's really cool, man. I like that goal. Get your players to level 20. And I'm sure it's going to be some shenanigans when you get them there.
I'm also, besides the world map, I'm also already charting out the elemental planes, the Shadowfell, because Eric is now, his paladin warlock is a patron of the Raven Queen.
Yeah.
So I gotta now I have to throw in the Shadowfell now. We already did the Land of the Dead, like, because we have a whole Egyptian setting. So they went to the Land of the Dead, and they ended up meeting a lot of the Egyptian pantheon.
That's cool. We gotta do some crossovers at some point in our games just to have fun with it. And
I haven't opened up Barovia, so
I know I would love for like people at some point, if you're, if you like, let's say down the line you're still playing with D&D Experience Point and you want to share. I think it would be cool for us to have like, I don't know how we do it, but like have a board or something where your world is kind of like people's go-to to like, where they can go in the lands of the group. So that's really cool. When players arrive in new worlds in your games, do you just, it sounds like you're doing a lot of mapping things out. So do you say like, if I was to arrive in Barovia in your game, Barovia's, that place is mapped out very well. So like in one of your new islands, maybe you've jotted down a few notes. Do you kind of lead them in with a special encounter? Do you kind of drop them off and say, where do you guys want to go? And I'm sure this is a question that's not one answer fits all, because I'm sure you do a number of things. Yeah. But like, what would be your normal go-to to like establishing a new place for players to explore without you pulling your hair out, right, and giving them full reign over it?
So I think that's something I have trouble with, because I do end up giving my players a lot, and I do think about like, okay, how am I going to bring them in? How am I going to do this? And one of the newest additions was one of our players named Colin. He's played as this character named Agatha, and she's a drow.
Okay.
And they're going to go to the Underdark, but first they're going to this elven encampment, or not this elven encampment, but it's more like this human / half elf encampment that our long-standing player Tolu. Right?
Okay, Tolu. Mm-hmm. Jason's character.
Jason's character. And the way that I was thinking about it was, he's not going to end up meeting them at all at this point if this continues, because they're going to be like closer to the surface. They're not really getting far and deep, because he's supposed to be on layer 2, the Drow people, which is 2,000 feet below ground.
Oh wow!
So how do I make this work?
Yeah,
the threat that's messing up the Underdark. Okay, that's a problem. Colin's character Agatha sees that as a problem. Their race is gonna, or their civilization is gonna be doomed if they don't stop it. He goes up to the surface to help, to get help. But the Drow civilization, they themselves scoff at the asking of help.
Asking of help. Surface. Yeah. That's
so. So it's like, okay. So instead, Agatha is going to be like, "You need our help." Because the danger is coming, and I'm here to warn you. And everyone's like, "What the fuck you on about? You're just running from 100 of these things, and you're acting like this big shot." And it's like, that's the best I got for you.
Yeah, that's cool. I like it. That's great, man. Speaking of all of this, I think I'd say a couple of my other questions would be, what has been like one really like one of your most special moments at the table, like where you were like, man, this is like, it just, I don't know if it just made you feel some way, you felt accomplished, maybe you were happy for a player, you're happy for the moment of the whole group. What was that moment? Describe that moment, and then describe after that another moment that you're looking towards having in the future. Like I feel like as we DM, we're inspired to like be like, one day at a table, I hope this happens naturally, and I'm like looking for that moment. Is there one of those? If it is, talk about that one.
It's already in process.
It's already.
I'll talk about the one that's I think about that's happened.
Okay.
And it is a moment that's just kind of like threw the entire like world on its head.
Okay.
And this was our iconic moment where Tolu and the rest of the gang was trying to stop the cultists of Set, who are trying to resurrect him, the god of chaos, back to the mortal plane.
Remember this.
And the cultists get to the deepest level of their temple, and they are standing in front of a sacrifice pit. This like long sacrifice pit, and there's like streams of water going down, and there's this long like pit at the end, and a giant statue of a snake with a red dot on its head. The players were dealing with the set or the cultist members, and they got like the ground beneath them like got shattered, and they fell into this room.
Wow.
It ended up they ended up seeing this like as like, oh shit, the cultists are already in the process. What do you guys do? And they were so far away, no one really could do much.
Yeah.
And Tolu was like, this is the only thing I can do. And he cast Tidal Wave. Okay. And he wants to wash all the cultists down into the pit. And I was like, I
remember now.
I was like, okay, I'm going to roll a Constitution save. They roll a natural 1. All fall down into the pit, and Set gets resurrected. I did not plan for him to come back.
Wow. So was it because all the cultists fell in the pit? That's part of the sacrifice, which brings them.
They were holding the sacrifice. They were holding this bag, and it was like the old scales of Set. And all they needed to do was throw them in there. But hey, like a few more bodies doesn't hurt.
There you go, a tidal wave. That's all we need. Do it.
And they had a crazy ass fight the next session, because it was literally an army. It was the entire continent of Malharan, which is this Egyptian continent.
Wow.
And suffice to say, 99% of the soldiers died. Malharan has no army now, and they're hiring adventurers with whatever like reserve they have, they're in a bad spot at the moment.
Yeah, so they really screwed the military in Mulholland, huh?
Yes.
Going forward. That's cool, man. And that's how your players will surprise you. What's the one that you're working on? What's the one? And you don't have to reveal anything, but like maybe what would you say about
Players
the one that you
already know, and there's been some foreboding.
Okay.
There's been a long-standing character who fought with the cultists and has role-played and has had real bonds, named Torbran.
Okay.
He's a dwarf paladin who is, sticks by his guns, a very honest, loyal dwarf.
Mm-hmm.
He was the one who actually who had the island. He made a deal with a being of some sort to save his island. And he has to go to the depths of the Underdark to find something. And I described to the players how he's disappeared from the party, and every now and then or actually only one scene that I told them that they see that there's a dwarf that's down the depths, and you just see this red glow around him as he's chopping through bodies, and it's like blood spurt everywhere. So it is that building, that looming. It's like, that is something that is happening.
I want to see that fight or whatever that conflict is going to be when it rears its ugly head. Pretty cool. That's good stuff, man. I love, like I said, love it. Really cool. We're coming down on the time here is exactly what I said. I want to keep these to like really, 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you would want to share, or like if somebody was looking at a D&D experience point and maybe were looking to play a game with you, maybe why would is there anything you would share with them about, how, what you look for maybe in a player, or maybe, I guess I'm just kind of rambling here. What should they expect from, I guess, your game and your group, maybe even as well, like the type of people you want to play with at the table?
Yeah. I would say that in general, our group is quite a rowdy bunch, and we end up doing some pretty crazy things.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of suspense and like surprises, because it's not going off of anything from like a standard module or anything like that. And even like with like certain like adding in new spells or new creatures and stuff like that, you never know what's going to happen. And there's been quite a few moments where it's like I get my players going to like, what the fuck, Nick? That thing is casting 11 Eldritch Blasts everywhere, every turn. What is that?
So you're definitely not adhering to the encounter building rules and all that stuff to make up for your
point. Not even close.
Nah, yeah. So I hear, be prepared for suspense, be prepared for the unknown, and you can't be a stickler for expecting your monsters to come out of a monster manual, I guess. Correct monster manual. That's good. Amen. That's the variety, and clearly it's working, because you got players who keep coming back and like playing at that table. And I'll tell you that I think some of the things that I really enjoy when I am watching your games, since you run it all like Discord, and I can't see the players, by hearing the voices, and I like the tone of your voice, and even how you describe things now. Like I tend to, sometimes I can ramble, or I can be very quick with my words, and I like that you have this ability to slow down, right, and say a few things and then pause, give them a chance to absorb it, and then give them a little bit more, and then pause, and then, but at the same time, you can be very, very quiet. I've seen like your villains come out and they're like, go insane. And you're just like, it goes from like 0 to 100 just like that.
Yeah.
That's cool. And those are some of the things that I want to kind of continue to absorb from you and bring to my games as well. So good stuff, man. Is there anything else you want to add? I just want to say thanks for jumping on with me.
No, thank you for having me. This has been a pretty good time.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice. Nicholas has games on, like I said, if you jump on the D&D Experience Point, his games right now are normally on Wednesdays, I think around 5 or 6 p.m. at night.
Yeah.
Just look for the ones that are hosted by Nick. They're all Discord Roll20. He does some fantastic mapping. Everything is dynamic lighting, very cool music, fun NPCs, and a good group. I can tell you because I play with some of his players. If you're looking to watch any of his games, you go to Gentleman Game Master on YouTube. Right now, we have a playlist going for his games, which I don't think I've named yet, but it's just like the Wednesday. If you give me a name of what you want to call your campaign, I'll make sure I'll do that. But just look for that on Gentleman Game Master, folks. And yeah, thanks for watching, and thanks for being a dope DM.